I'm Dean Olson again. I introduced myself this morning, and today I get to introduce Mayor Sly James. I know a little bit about Sly, and one thing I know about him is that he's one of the good guys. In fact, you might say he's a great leader in this community. I was reading over his biography of what he's accomplished in his life, what he's accomplished in his first term, the beginning of the second term, and he's accomplished many things and he started many initiatives. But I'm particularly impressed with his willingness to take on the issue of education. And you probably know that there are several school districts in Kansas City, Missouri, and he's not in charge of any of them. That hasn't stopped him from recognizing there's some problems in education and starting his own initiative, which is now formed as its own organization, Turn the Page KC. And its vision is that all children will be reading at grade level by the end of third grade. And he might talk about this a little bit, I don't know. But I also want to take the opportunity to thank the mayor for something he did last year right here in this very space on August 25th. In conjunction with the Department of Education in DC, he conducted a community conversation right here on early education. And he featured the Talk, Read, Play campaign. And he and his education advisor, Julie Holland, encouraged businesses, hospitals, churches, schools, and other organizations to make a commitment to use Talk, Read, Play, and to be very specific about it. And we think that's an important message. Talk, read, play with your child every day. Because this campaign helps parents better understand that whenever they're spending time with their children, talking, reading, whether they're singing or rhyming or playing, these are brain-building moments. Moments that help make more connections for language and literacy and social-emotional development. So I thank the mayor for supporting Talk, Read, Play. I thank him for supporting Head Start, and I congratulate him on starting Turn the Page KC. So, Mayor, the stage is yours.
I want to thank Dean for a very gracious introduction. Pretty much like I wrote it. No, but I do appreciate it. It's very kind of you. And before I get started, I want to point out something that I get to stand up at podiums a lot and talk about education and say some fairly interesting things, none of which would be possible. Well, I don't want to give her too much credit. A lot of which wouldn't be possible without Julie Holland, my education advisor. She is an invaluable member of the team that provides me with good, quality, accurate information, finds things for us to do, and keeps us focused on things, education in the city. So I have a great deal of respect for this young lady, and really, we've been blessed to have her in my office. I'm really happy to be here with you today to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Head Start. This is an institution that plays an integral part in the development of our city's most precious resource, and that's our children. I've said for a long time in this city, and I'll say it again today, that the #1 economic development tool for our city is education. I also say that despite the fact that children are a small percentage of the population, they're 100% of our future. So it's important that our children, the ones who are going to be leading the city in the next 20, 25 years, have every opportunity, have every advantage, and have every opportunity to receive the highest quality education at the earliest opportunity. And it's important that we emphasize early. Each of you in this room knows the importance of that. Each of you plays an important role in the lives of children. And whether you're a teacher or a family advocate or a child care provider, a mother, father, aunt, grandmother, grandfather, the work that you do, the passion that you carry with you and making a difference in the life of a child every day is absolutely extraordinary. I want to thank you for that, because without that effort, we would be very poor indeed when we start talking about the future of this city, this state, and this country, without people who care about our future embodied in our children. This actually is a pretty exciting time to be talking about early childhood education in Kansas City. We have chewed on it and looked at it and turned it at different angles and twisted it around for a long time now. But now, more than ever, we're actually starting to understand what we're talking about and not just talk about it, but we're actually going to do something about it. And I'm pretty big on doing stuff, which is why I like being a political public servant on the local level as opposed to the state or the federal level, where they talk and talk, but they don't do anything. And if my bias shows through from time to time, hey, what can I tell you? Last fall, the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce announced its commitment to kindergarten readiness as one of the new Big Five ideas and initiatives that they have. That was an outstanding thing. That announcement alone shows that our business community gets how vital it is to engage in processes that promote early learning, and that they recognize that the success of children is, to a large extent, enhanced or retarded by whether or not they have access to or they're denied access to early learning opportunities. So Turn the Page KC was one of the very first things that I did after I was elected. It came as I was at a U.S. Conference of Mayors meeting in Baltimore when I was approached about a third grade reading and decided that that was a cause that we needed to take up in Kansas City. So we made it a focal point of what we do to work to make sure that children are reading proficiently by the time they finish third grade. And my guess is that I don't really have to tell this group of people why. Because if you're not reading proficiently by the time you finish third grade, your chances of having a quality educational opportunity go down as a direct result of not having that ability. And if you're unable to read at the time that you proficiently, at the time that you finish third grade, then you may find yourself as one of the 80% of people in prisons who do not read above a fourth grade level. And we simply don't need any more people in prison. We need people in schools. We need people in jobs, but not in prisons. And reading is such a fundamental skill, so absolutely vital to success in this country anymore, that it is a moral obligation for us to do it. And so we started Turn the Page. We did our data collection, and we found out that only about a third of the kids in this city in the 15 school districts on average were reading proficiently at third grade. In the Kansas City public school system, 19%. Only 1 in 5 were reading proficiently at third grade. That is no way to raise a city or to raise a child when they have no control over that. We do. They will be the ones who suffer from our lack of diligence on their behalf. So we thought it was important to do something about it. So we stressed that. We have a free-standing alone organization, Turn the Page KC, 501c3, with a board of directors, which I'm proud to be chair. We do a lot of good things. We have emphasized the importance of having age-appropriate books in the home where children are. So recently, we did a Dad's Turn the Page program where we asked dads, not moms, because we always see moms read the kids in pictures. We asked dads to read to kids and send us the photographs in so that we could show that dads read to their kids too. And part of that was promoted through the Books and Barbershop program, where books were actually taken to barbershops. The black folks will really get this. Just imagine Julie going into the Seven Oaks barbershop with a stack of books. It was worth, yeah, I just wanted to see it, so that was good. But we had fathers sitting there who brought their kids, and they were waiting for their turn to have their hair cut, and so they were sitting there reading books. That's a pretty cool thing to do. I don't know how many hits. We had thousands and thousands and thousands of hits on that. And that was really fantastic. Recently, I think it was July 17th, if I'm not mistaken, we had over 1,000 kids at the Sprint Center, where we had every superhero has a story day, where the kids were dressed as superheroes, and the superheroes were the letters of the alphabet. And so they came out and they had their handmade costumes that volunteers had made. I could tell that when we started getting near the Z, because the volunteers were at, it started with beer, and they made the costume. By the time they got to Z, I think they probably had more than one beer. But the kids were really great. They had a blast. And 1,000 kids came and sat there, and we read that book. And the kids, A, walked across the stage, and followed by B in their costumes. And it was one of the neatest things that you'd ever want to see. It was really pretty neat. And it was an afternoon of reading and fun. They got to touch and pet the police department's horse. They got to talk to and interact with the soccer team players from Sporting KC. They were on the fire truck that came. They talked to people who had things for them. It was great. We had a little screening, I think, done there as well. It was a good day. But we know that quality learning begins in the home and in preschool, and that is essential to closing the word gap that children raised in poverty experience. 30 million fewer words by the age of 3 than those more affluent counterparts. So that's one of the reasons that we joined in with, and we're happy, not happy, ecstatic to partner with the Family Conservancy to promote Talk, Read, Play with your child every day. It aims to close that gap. It talks about reading and playing and talking and making it second nature for parents to do that with children. Things that sometimes those of us who are fortunate think might be second nature, but sometimes we're not the ones who are under the stress of having to work 2 jobs, 3 jobs to support a family, or doing it alone, or doing it under bad circumstances where their hierarchy of needs and ours is not necessarily the same. So what we do with this is we raise this as higher on that chart, so that they know that it is important despite how tired you are. Because at the end of the day, having spent time with your child is going to give you more energy than not having spent time with them. So we recruited some organizations, and when I say we, I get to say we because of she. Okay? You know, I'm not inclined to want to stand around and take credit for stuff I didn't do. This lady worked her tail off. She got hospitals here. Not only did she get them here, it wasn't just a matter of getting them here and everybody saying, yeah, okay, we'll do that. They signed commitments for what they would do. There was a plan. We knew before we ever started that evening or that day that Children's Mercy Hospital was going to have written materials, and they were going to meet with parents after birth, and they were going to talk to the parents, and they were going to spend time with them and show them how to do this. We had a commitment from our city manager to put Talk, Read, Play bumper stickers on city vehicles, so that would be something that would be seen driving around the city. We had commitments from other hospitals to do the same thing. We had commitments, and people have done it. So she helped raise that conversation and elevate the conversation about the importance of talking, reading, and playing with your children every day. Turn the Page hired a Vista to support the implementation and growth of Talk, Read, Play campaign going forward, and they're charged with bringing new organizations to the table who will make real commitments to do something to promote talk, reading, and playing, and to make sure that children have the best start possible. You know, it should be that Talk, Reading, and Play may be a very good place to have the next public health campaign, and it really does kind of need to be promoted as such. Because we all know, how many of you have not seen The Raising of America? Good, everybody has. So you've seen the Raising of America, you know the health connection. And we ought to make that clear. And we ought to use it as such and tell people about it because it does make a difference. And one thing that we do know right here in this city, that depending on your socioeconomic status and your educational background and your poverty level, if you live in the right zip code, your life expectancy is either lower or higher, depending on those factors. And education is right in the middle of it. And education is dependent on talk, reading, and playing, and third grade reading proficiencies. So we know what the connection is. What we need to do is we need to do something about that connection. So I'm also excited to tell you that we were recently chosen by the National League of Cities as one of 7 cities to participate in city leadership for building an early learning nation. And we will receive some technical assistance in order to try to implement that. So over the 12 months of this project and this initiative, we're going to receive information about those cutting edge research issues, assistance in developing and implementing local plans, and opportunities to share best practices with others from around the country. And we know that in order to be successful in making meaningful gains in early education, the only way that we can do that is to work together as a community. So each of you here today understands that whole situation about what it means to collaborate. Each of you is doing your part in the total scheme, and for that, I really can't thank you enough. So now I'd like to present you with a proclamation recognizing this special event. And I'd like to present it to you, Dean, the President and CEO of Family Conservancy. Recognizing the 50th anniversary of the Head Start in Kansas City, Missouri, whereas President Lyndon B. Johnson declared a war on poverty on January 8, 1964, when 23% of the nation's children lived below the poverty line. And whereas in the last half-century, Head Start has served 32 million children and their families nationally, supporting them in every aspect of their development, from learning to health and nutrition and to social and emotional well-being. And whereas Head Start has been a pioneer in designing new solutions for early education while also fighting the harmful effects of poverty, and where it works to build ladders of opportunity into the middle class, which will in turn strengthen our economy, bolster our community, and give every young person the chance to build a better life. And whereas in 2014, the Family Conservancy, a Head Start delegate, supported 995 children and 136 providers through community partnerships and direct services to empower children and their families of the greater Kansas City area to foster positive parent-child relationships, to reach for economic and family stability, and to make important connections to their peers and their community. And whereas these past 5 decades of success have empowered families, improved local economies, and transformed communities. Now, therefore, I, Sylvester James, the mayor of the city of Kansas City, Missouri, on behalf of the citizens of this great city and the City Council, do hereby recognize the 50th anniversary of Head Start and applaud the Family Conservancy's efforts in greater Kansas City. Thank you for having me here today. Thank you for being here and doing what you do. And thanks to all of you who work so tirelessly, so enthusiastically, so patiently, so persistently, so awesomely to make make lives of child brighter than they would have been without your intervention. Thank you all for being here. Welcome to Kansas City if you're from someplace else. Keep doing what you're doing, and always insist that after the talking, we do something. Thank you very much.